Hi, Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law and Mediation, soon to be Hamilton ADR, North Carolina. And I am so glad all of you are here tonight because today something happened that was so critical for me. And I actually reached out to the speakers that I can't wait to tell you all about it. We are here for the MAAP plan. This is the MAAP community. We come together every Wednesday night at 6:30 to talk about how we are making plans for our pets so that if anything happens to us, and we only count death as one of the things that we prepare for, our pets will navigate that journey, and the people who we have appointed will know what we want to do. Susan, I saw your note, and I'm hoping that you can unmute yourself, or maybe there you are. You are unmuted.
Yeah.
Just don't have a camera.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know why I was
Super.
clicking on the wrong thing, but
no worries. I'm so glad you guys are here. So for those of you who are listening later or who come on later, I just want to say that the MAAP plan talks about how to make a plan and navigate that journey your pet takes when you can't care for it. We also talk about problems with pets, and I share some of the infinite amounts of people and knowledge that I have come into contact, both in my professional life, my life with my dogs, and also on my Why Do Pets Matter podcast. Such a treasure trove of information there. Don't forget to go over there and listen to the podcast. But MAAP stands for something. That's why we have this MAAP community. The M stands for make a plan. So you can't appoint anybody as a caregiver for your pets unless you sit down and make a plan. You need to make a plan. You need to know what it is you want done with your pets in the event something happens to you. The A is address the needs of your pets. So when you're making a plan for your pets, this is what I want to be done with Fido. Well, make sure you talk about Fido. Make sure you say that Fido or Spot or Fluffy or Igor the egret or whatever animal you have, somebody knows what they're taking on when they take on that animal, right? So do they bite strangers? Do they have a dietary need that you have to abide by? Do they have a quirky thing they do that you shouldn't worry about? I mean, sometimes dogs sneeze a lot, and it's just because they sneeze, and you've had them checked out and the vet says they're fine, and so you're good to go. All of these things that are particular to your dog or particular to your dog breed. Talk about bloat, talk about cancer, talk about anything that might be helpful to the person who takes your dog for a short term or a long term. You need to address the needs of your pet. Then you have to appoint caregivers. You need to find people who are in it to help you keep your dogs in the event that it's a short-term injury, or keep your dogs forever, if that's what they can do, or you trust them to place the dogs in a great home, take them initially, and then find good homes for them. These are all things you want to talk about with these people who you appoint, because it is absolutely imperative. Your dog is relying on you, your cat's relying on you, especially your horse. God, any horse people, if you don't do this, I'm going to come out and horse whip you, because horses are really hard to find a new home for. You need to find these homes before you need them. Finding them in extremis is never good, never easy, and often, I know from my office, don't turn out the way you hoped. So you've got to do this now. And then, of course, the most important piece, and they said it today on the AKC responsible ownership video that you can see on Facebook. It's on the AKC website. I'm going to try to have Rose look it up if she can, so that she can put the link on. If not, I'll try to look it up while we're talking. However, it is something that is important to everyone. Once you make this plan, you appoint caregivers, you address the needs of your pet, you need to tell people about it. So I use P for publish. You need to publish it with those people who are your caregivers. You need to publish it with your veterinarian, because they need to know who's going to be able to take care of your pet if you can't. You need to publish it with your family. You need to publish it with your attorney, your dog walker, your kennel, your groomer, anyone who knows your pets should know about the plans you make for your pets. So it's imperative that you do that. Hey, Kieran, good to see you. I'm giving them the lowdown on what MAAP stands for and how the AKC event today talked all about the MAAP plan. And I was mesmerized because I actually reached out for the people who were the speakers. Dr. Hold on a minute. I got it written down here. Of course, it's at the end of my book, which is Dr. Klein, Dr. Jerry Klein, who's the AKC's veterinarian, and Kathy Santo, who's a big-time New Jersey dog trainer. So I reached out to both of them, asked them to be on Why Do Pets Matter? I'd love for them to be guests on our community to talk about it. They were talking about making plans for your pets as being part of being a responsible dog owner. And I saw that Kieran was there, and I hope he put his link up for the book, When Your Child Asks for a Pet. Let One-Eyed Leo guide the conversation. I hope you put that link up there because it was such an important conversation about what we talk about every week here. So make sure that, you are prepared. And as we talk about every week, we have the D's. So death is only one. And I was mesmerized, Kieran, as probably you were, that they talked about having 10 people to call. I'm like, I can't get people to find 5 people, asking them to find 10 people and then putting it in the glove compartment of their car. I was like, yes, that's so smart. However, you can't make it unmanageable. And of course, they're telling people to do this stuff without any ability to help them do it. That's why we're here, because we help everybody find a way to do it, not just to talk about it. These are not easy things to do. These are not easy plans to navigate. And of course, I did put up there the D's: the divorce, the delay, the disease, the disability, the disaster, the dementia, and I think death was the last one, because all of this is important to plan for. You can't just plan for the care of your pets when you die, because unfortunately, if you die and you don't have a plan in place for when you're alive but not able to care for them, you don't have any idea what's going to happen to your dogs. I mean, we learned that during COVID. So many dogs were taken by animal care and control, put in shelters, put in animal care and control, then put in shelters, and then adopted. And you know what happens? Oh, thank you so much, Rose. You are my lifesaver. The link is in the chat to look at the AKC event today for responsible dog ownership. So now I'm going to do what I usually do, check in with my community, see how everybody's doing, and then continue this chat because, as you can see, I am incredibly energized by that discussion. It was really good. They didn't take any of Kieran or my questions, which was a little disappointing. However, they did talk about some responsible dog ownership things. So Susan, let me check in with you. How's Maggie doing?
It's been interesting. I did get the trazodone from Maggie last Thursday, and initially we didn't notice that it changed anything. I'm not really sure it's working. But I should get back with the vet and talk it over with her about where to go from here.
You absolutely should. And, they might start them off on a small dose that might, because she's a small dog, she's a Catan. So they might start off on a small dose, and maybe I can think of 2 reasons. One is to see how she reacts, because you don't want to give her any drug and have her have a bad reaction. That's not what we're here for.
Sure.
Or that she needs to build it up in her system for it to work. Some of these drugs, you have to get a certain level in your bloodstream and then they work. So if she's only been on it a few days, I'd give her a week, maybe 2, and then call the vet and say, I don't see any change in her habits or conduct. What do you suggest we do next?
Right. And I didn't know if maybe this, if she does calm down, maybe it's a good time for me to start doing the muzzle training with Kathy. I do feel bad about giving the trazodone. I mean, I feel horrible guilt about it.
But you're doing it, I think, in a way that's very responsible because God bless you. It's true. She's had, issues. She wasn't able to get out because of COVID. And so there's so many things that impacted her becoming a typical Catan, that now you're going to give her a little bit of a break, and then you're going to work with a trainer to try to get her over the hump. I also sent you the information from my other friend, and then there's a guy in Virginia, Doug Pointer, who's going to be a guest on Why Do Pets Matter, who's also a trainer who might be able to help, because it is about consistency. It is about, you not being afraid to do what it is you want to do and train Maggie to do. So
Right.
These are all things that are going to put you steps in the right direction.
Yeah, thank you. I hope so, because I want her to be a happy, healthy dog. And, all of her reactions, I know trauma and having a lot of stress in your body is not good for your health. And all of her behaviors exhibit kind of, I'm traumatized. I'm not happy, or, I try to give her as much care and concern as I can, but I know the same thing is true for people. I mentioned I do a lot of functional medicine and follow the effects of PTSD and other types of trauma. So having those extreme types of behaviors are, not good for health, physical health,
Right.
as well as mental health. And yeah,
It's not for anyone. And so you're trying to figure out a way to help Maggie get over where she is now in an easier, way. And this'll all work out. You just have to stay committed to finding a way to get to Maggie so that she's a happy, healthy Catan.
yeah, hopefully we can get through this.
Yep, absolutely. So Sally, how are the old girls in the cold weather of 5 and 7 degrees?
Well, my girls, as every week, are perfect. It's like a little bit icy and slushy and slippery, but they are wearing boots, which they both hate. But we live on a dirt road, so they don't get the chemicals in their paws. And I've used mushers on their paws, which is what the dogs in the Iditarod use. And they can lick it off, and it's just fine. And neither one of them seems to care at all. So we're doing really well. 10,000 steps today for 2 old girls, 5 in the morning, 5 in the evening, and they're sound asleep right now. But yeah, I think they're doing very, very well. Interesting how they watch out for one another. They've been together 7 months, but if one is checking something out, like an aroma, the other one must check that out too. And if one is like, oh my gosh, that's a scary noise, the other one's, come on, I'll take care of you. So interesting to see the dynamics. After 7 months, they're like a team.
Oh yeah, they're bonded. And so it's really interesting how that really impacts how they live their life, because at the beginning they sort of, look at each other, but now they're sort of relying on each other, which is important and good for all of them, because if one gets up, the other one gets up. If one lays down, the other one lays down, which is great. Hey, Kieran, how are you, honey?
Oh, good. That was an interesting conference today, all right. And I don't know if you've picked up on it, Debbie. I wouldn't be too disappointed that our questions weren't mentioned, for the simple reason that all the questions that were chosen did not come from the viewers.
I know.
Yes.
There were no questions by viewers that were picked up,
Yeah,
which, it is what it is. And what are you going to do? They were giving some great information. And so I know I was so glad that you were on, because otherwise people would say, oh, you're just saying this because this is your plan. But I was mesmerized that they went almost step by step through the MAAP plan.
Yeah. The other thing I found interesting was they mentioned that discussion we had last week on insurance.
Mm-hmm. They did.
Um,
And they did say, other than pet insurance, they said you can also have a savings account. You can also
Yeah.
have other things. So they were thinking outside the box as well, because sometimes pet insurance is really expensive. However, when you get the pet, you start an annuity or something like insurance, and then you can dip into it. You have to, unfortunately, you have to have a financial planner who can put you into the right vehicle, right? Which costs
Mhm.
money. However, it might be a one-time expense that then you have in place for every dog you have for the rest of your life. What else did you find was interesting? Because I have so much I found was interesting. I was like a crazy person.
There's a lot. But just to stick on that the insurance and the annuity idea, it keeps. I thought a lot of the discussion today was based on the day after the dog arrives in the house.
Nothing revolved around what to do before the dog arrives
Before
in the
the
house. So
dog,
I knew
very little, if anything, and between that and the insurance debate, the points that kept jumping out were that the culture has not moved on from the point where the owner is the sole project manager.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's really where we're at the moment, and that needs to be changed. I think that's the one, if you like, that's the center of gravity that everybody has to start moving away from. Now, to put that into comparison, if every driver out there with a car was the sole owner of the project, the roads wouldn't move. In other
Or
words,
if they got the car before they learned how to drive.
I won't talk about my friends in this, but and I will. I better not mention my late mother, who got it. She was the first woman in Ireland to drive a commercial vehicle, and you did not have to have a driver's license at the time. She drove all her life without ever having sat a driving test.
Yeah. But similarly, states have rules, because to drive a car, 1,000-pound car, you should have a little bit of direction on how to start, how to stop. What are the rules of the road? Do you stay to the right? Do you stay to the left? Do you use your blinker? Some of them are even, extraordinary. Should you know how to change a tire? That was my father's biggest thing. I had to know how to change a tire. So these are rules of the road before you get behind the wheel. However, for pet ownership, there are no rules of the road. There's nothing. There's some books talk about the breeds, absolutely, but no uniform.
Yeah.
Although in some countries, I know which ones have it.
Mm-hmm.
Some countries have classes you have to take before you get a dog.
Yeah. I think there's sort of an interesting lesson. Now, this is very much a sideshow to what we're talking about, but across Europe, and I don't know if this is the case in the States, the advent of the scooter on the road, is the electric scooters.
Yep.
It's becoming a very big thing here, and there's still, right across Europe, there's a lot of open questions on which countries are going to permit them on the road, and the whole insurance question comes up again, and it's a motorized vehicle. Should anybody be allowed to actually use the road space rather than a cycle path, whatever? But what I find would be interesting here is just how quick everybody can reach a consensus in a couple of years' time.
Yeah. Right.
And yet we're 200 years after the first SPCA was set up, still no consensus.
No consensus, because people want to own their dogs the way they want to own their dogs. But I think everyone here has owned a dog in their lifetime, and they learned something about dog ownership, pet ownership, from the first time to the current time. And if you were to do it all again, most people would say, well, I know what I got into. I know what it means. I know what the commitment is, but I didn't at the beginning. I don't know. I'd love to check in with Sally and you, Karen, and Susan, whether you remember, because we're all older than 21. So memory does not serve us always that well. But when you got your first dog, maybe you were a kid. I know I was. I had no responsibility. However, I can tell you that nobody watched me. I was 5 around my dog, and I should have been arrested for tying her up and doing all sorts of things, because that's what I did as a 5-year-old. Nobody watched, and it was terrible. So I watched my kids like a hawk because I knew what I did. Sort of like when parents say, when your kids are going out to a dance or something, remember I was a kid once too. So, for me, I never really did anything wrong going to the dances, but boy, was I a little piece of work with my dogs when I was younger. So I really watched my dogs like a hawk. So Kieran, let me know, when you got your first dog, how old were you, and what did you learn then that you hold steadfast now, which is why you don't have a dog right now?
Oh, that's a brilliant question. I think, let me see. Oh, Rex was his name, and he came into our lives. I think I would have been about 10 at the time. And yes, we used to go out running quite a lot. That's one of the memories. I was a sort of a distance runner, and the Rex would come off in the evening for a few miles. What I suppose the going back, and I was part of the family, so I wasn't. There was 3 brothers and 3 sisters, so the dog was sort of lucky. There's no shortage of people happy
Caregivers.
to run a walk, and I suppose the one lesson there is, you're talking about a living entity that has huge demands of energy and everything else, and time would be time and the energy would be the 2 things I couldn't manage at the moment with a dog.
Right. And it's great that you've had a pet. You understand the time and energy, and you understand right now, not really great. I mean, I posted something on Facebook today. I don't know if all of you saw it. It was a poster about until you get too old, until I have a baby, until I get another dog, until I move, until I whatever. When you bring a dog into your life, things change, and I get it. But that's why you make a MAAP plan, because then you have the ability to find a soft landing for the dog if until happens. But it's not until and I'm dropping you off at the shelter. It's until, and I know that the neighbor loves you, and I'm going to keep in touch with the neighbor. And if the neighbor can't keep you, then I have somebody else. You have to make these kind of plans or not get the dog. So you were brilliant, Kieran. You didn't get the dog, so you don't have to worry about until. But if you had a dog, then and time was tied up, then hopefully after being here as part of this community, you would have said, okay, so I have 5 or 6 people who I know, in Ireland or here in Tenerife, who could take the dog, like you took the dog for your friend for a few weeks. That was perfect. But, that was perfect for you. And it was perfect for them, because whatever happened in their life or where they were traveling or business or a family or whatever, it was great. But they made that MAAP plan, and you were their caregiver, which was fabulous. And I know, I remember you saying, I enjoy it, but I'm going to be glad when he goes or she goes, because you get your life back. And I know that's blasphemy, that anybody would say you get your life back. I can say that I was without dogs for however many months, and I miss them terribly. But when Jim and I decided to drive up somewhere to go to a concert or something, I never had to think about who was going to care for the dogs, because they were beautifully cared for by the people I left them with. So although I missed them terribly, I knew they were safe. So these are the kind of things you have to think about. Susan, how about, what did you learn with your first pets, or your whatever that creates that agreement that you make every time you get a pet?
Yeah, I got my first dog in 1999, my first Catan. I had dogs when I was a child, but I don't really remember that much about it. But
the answer is your mother took care of it, even though you probably swore you were going to take care of it, because that's
but that was my kitty, my Manx kitty. I had a wonderful Manx kitty. But I got the dog in 1999, and Monday would have been his 23rd birthday. And as I sit here talking to you, I'm sitting in front of their ashes, both of my 2 dogs. And, I think I've learned what an incredible commitment it is when you get a dog, and when you lose a dog, you don't want to have any regrets about how you cared for that dog or provided for that dog. And because I was devastated when both of my dogs died. It was really hard.
Yeah.
And I did have regrets that we didn't do more or care better for them, provide better meals, better. I mean, we did get vet care. They always had good vet care, dental care, everything that we could possibly do for them. But I think sometimes you do have to think outside of the traditional pet model that kind of is promoted by different businesses. And so we even did homeopathic care for both of our dogs. And we really cared about them. They were family members.
Yeah, they are. And so you do the best you can and you learn from every experience. That's what I've found. I mean, I went to the AKC website to look up something for Junie, and it listed all the dogs that were registered to me. And I can tell you there's about 57.
Wow.
I've had 7 litters, and some of them were 2, some of them were 3, some of them were 12. So everybody was co-owned. So they're all listed to me as well as their other owner. And I thought the same thing you did, Susan. I hope I did the best I could to find them really good homes. The ones I didn't keep, I know I co-own them. I know I kept in touch with every single one of my owners. And so that's the best we can do. And hoping that they followed my directions, but they all wrote me and told me the dogs were thriving. And some wrote me and told me the dogs passed away, which of course made me cry, which it's amazing. But when your owner calls you to tell you that their older dog has passed away, it is as impactful as anything I've ever had to do. Because I remember bringing that dog into this world, right? Because I was there. And I feel so badly for the owner because, I handed them this dog, and I know that I'm handing you the best thing ever in your life. And I know I'm also handing you something that will break and shatter your heart, hopefully in 15 or 20 years, but will, because, I'm hoping you love it and I'm hoping it's a member of your family. So believe me, Susan, when I tell you the breeders you bought your dogs from appreciated you took such great care of them. You love them. They were part of your family. And, I always tell owners, please call your breeder and let them know, because we do want to know. We want to know how long our dogs lived, what their lives were like. Tell us all about it. We do check in with you, but there's that delicate dance we do. Do we want to be a pain in the butt? And call you every 6 months and you think we're checking up on you. And quite frankly, it's only that we miss the dogs, but are glad you've got them. I mean, I always said there's a girl who gave away her last puppy, I think yesterday or the day before. And I said, well, the only good news is less refuse to pick up. You have one less poopy to pick up of all the dogs in your house. We are literal. We are true to our form. I remember when my puppies go, I cry hysterically. But then when I go to the whelping box and there's only 2 dogs going to the bathroom, oh my God, that is a blessing from heaven, right? Only 2, there's not 12. So Sally, how about you? What is dog ownership meant to you, and what have you learned with every dog that's passed through?
Well, there are lots and lots and lots, because I take the older dogs. And I think, now that we're hopefully at the end of COVID, I think you can relate this to COVID. It's a personal decision, whether it is holistic or you go traditional medicine or you go to steroids. That's up to you. And you do your research and you make the very best decision you can based on the facts that you have. In my case, I've lost dogs for different illnesses and for old age, but I would do things differently with the 2 dogs that I have now with dogs I've had previously based on what I observed. So that's what I would say.
And that's so important to
It's
learn
quality of life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. To learn from the dogs you had before. And I know that everyone has their own idea of what, steps to take, which is why you have to make a MAAP plan. Because when you make that plan, you have to tell people, yes, I want you to go to the ends of the earth to save their lives. I don't care what it costs. I don't care if, there's only a 1% chance of them surviving or 1% chance of them, whatever, or if it's, God forbid, cancer, it's just palliative care. I want you to do extraordinary things. And if you don't want that, then you have to say, listen, if they get cancer, I want you to make them comfortable for the rest of their lives, but no extraordinary things, no surgery they have to recover from, no drugs that might make them sick, radiation that might burn up their esophagus or something. You want to make sure you tell people how you want your pets to be cared for, because they can't read your mind. They might have read your mind wrong if they did read your mind. And so putting it down on paper is key. I can tell you in my office, the fact that people don't put things down in writing just blows me away, because I know that I have told Sally exactly what I want to have done. However, I think it's in writing, I'm pretty sure. And if not, I'll be sending it to her. But, we have had this conversation for a long time. And, we unfortunately have gone through 2 dogs that had life-threatening illnesses, and we've learned from that. And so we, are going to choose a path of least resistance, best quality of life, and moving on. So it really is something that you learn from each dog. And so to get back to that question that Kieran brought up at the beginning, the responsible dog ownership discussion came after you bought the dog, which of course begs the question of whether or not you should have bought the dog, because that is not the time to ask whether or not you're a responsible dog owner. What do you think, Kieran?
Well, if you take those 2 words, responsible, or that single word, responsible, look at it in its most basic form. Are you able to respond? And that's what's sort of missing in this, that responsible ownership is sort of looked upon as what you do after an event. Where being able to respond means you have the skills before the event actually happens.
That's why they're called first responders.
There you have it, Debbie. They are first responders. That's a second party to the owner.
Yep.
That's irresponsible ownership. if you need a first responder.
Yeah. Exactly. So say that again.
No, I think you were saying it better than I was.
So as a pet owner, you have to be the first responder. That's part of the responsibility. And if you can't help, you have to know who the first responders should be going forward. And these are things you think of before you get your pet, which is why, as I've spoken on a few of these calls over the weeks, as I look for a vet, not being able to find a vet that you feel comfortable with is really difficult. And not being able to speak to vets unless you have your pet is also sort of a roadblock, because it's sort of like, okay, so I have to get the dog before I can speak to the vet, but maybe I won't like the vet, and how do I get to another vet? So yeah, absolutely, Kieran. So I think that the talk today was great. It talked about what to do once you get the pet, but as we've really hammered home here, because of the beautiful book that Kieran has written, when your child asks for a pet, let one-eyed Leo guide the conversation. That's what you need to do first. I mean, we all have pets here. We all love them. We're making the MAAP plan. But as can be seen from most things, make sure you do your homework before you get the pet, because as everybody here has related, it's a responsibility. It's a responsibility for life. It's a responsibility for food and medication. It's a responsibility for training. Yes, they do run with us. Yes, they do love us. Yes, we have to train them. Yes, they grow old and we have to support them. I know ice and snow with older dogs, just a nightmare. I need to move Sally and Gordon to North Carolina because we have Eastern North Carolina because we have not had ice on the roads. They suspected we would, but we have not. Because, older dogs, it's harder. So to wrap up tonight, because of course we've run out of time so fast, tell me the one piece of responsible dog ownership you find you can't live without. Sally, we're going to start with you.
Ooh, responsible pet ownership. I can't live without.
Can't live without.
I think trying to, I think the pet responds to you. I think you can sort of read their energy and what they want. And so, for instance, this morning, we were out on a walk on the icy roads, and Roxy, who never, ever, ever cuts the walk short, turned around and headed back. And it's like, I get it. This walk is now in the reverse. We're heading back home. So I think your pet lets you know. So pay close attention to what your pet is responding to and, follow the response.
Yep. How about you, Susan?
We have two types of food in our house for our Maggie. One of it is farmer's dog and the others is open farm beef stew. And Tom has been putting her food out. She doesn't really like the beef stew all that much. And she likes the farmer's dog. And so I think, like Sally just said, paying attention to what their, inclinations are is really important. And he keeps putting out the other stuff because we have a ton of it. But
I know, right? I did that too. I used to buy raw stuff for my dogs, and all of a sudden they decided they hated it, and I was like, "Oh no!" So I just threw it out in the garbage when my husband wasn't looking. That's just what I did. Karen, how about you?
Oh, that's a very tough question. So I'm going to finish with a very quick story, if I may, which was I brought my friend to the top of the volcano here in Tenerife on his second last day. And it's a famous volcano called Teide, it's Spain's highest mountain. So if you're ever in a pub quiz and they ask you, where's Spain's highest mountain? It's actually in Tenerife. So this was snow covered when we got up there. And about 20 meters from us, there was a man standing still, and we were looking at him. And then only after a few minutes, we noticed that he had a Dalmatian beside him, but because there was snow on the ground and the Dalmatian was against sort of a volcanic rock, it was completely camouflaged. Completely camouflaged. So this is a historical fact, which means it's not true. It's just historical, that Dalmatians were the world's first canine inventors of camouflage.
I love it. So making sure you understand that if you have a Dalmatian, don't walk on a volcanic top because you'll lose them in the snow. I get that.
You lose them in the snow against the rock. And I suppose the one link of responsibility is you can always depend on a dog to bring a bit of magic under any circumstances.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Kieran, you always have such wonderful stories and wonderful things to say. I'm so grateful you come. I'm so grateful you're here. Until next week, this is Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law and Mediation, soon to be Hamilton ADR, North Carolina. And until then, kiss your dogs. Make sure you make a MAAP plan. You can find all the information on hamiltonlawandmediation.com.